So what completely doesn't make sense to me is all these pundits and former politicians and former Republicans on MSNBC and CNN saying that a politician whose policies are virtually identical to Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Jack Kennedy, and Lyndon Johnson can't get elected president. I cannot fathom this. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. But the caucuses in Nevada happened over the weekend, and the show. I was in Minneapolis. We had a wonderful time in Minneapolis, by the way. KTNF is such a great radio station, and thanks so much to Chad and to Janet and to Bill and Lori and just all the great people there and all the great hosts. It's a great show. They've a great station. They've got their own app, and you can find a KTNF out of Minneapolis, AM 950. But between the time that I did one event and the time I did another event with them, or between the time I guess that I arrived, I flew in from Portland fairly early, and then we had a dinner last night, and during that, the returns were coming in, and so I was watching them on CNN and MSNBC and Fox. I was channel surfing from my hotel room, and I'm hearing James Carville going off on how, people, this is like, people who think Bernie can win an election are like climate deniers. They're opposed to the science. That's horse pucky. It's just wrong. I mean, are you telling me that somebody who packs 23,000 people into a stadium, or into a stadium in Seattle, 17,000 people in Southern California, literally tens of thousands of people coming out all over the country, somebody who pulled 69% of Hispanic voters in the Nevada caucus under 45 years old, 69%. Biden was 8%, Buttigieg 7%, Warren 7%, Steyer 5%, Gabbard and Klobuchar 1% each. 69 friggin' percent of Hispanic vote, that person can't win an election? Are you seriously trying to tell me that somebody whose proposals are no more than what Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, and Jack Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson proposed? Are you trying to, honest to God, you're trying to tell me that somebody whose policies are essentially identical to Lyndon Johnson, Jack Kennedy, Harry Truman, and Franklin Roosevelt can't get elected? Are you seriously trying to tell me that? Jimmy Carter announced that he was going to have, a solar bank that would provide 20% of the nation's electricity by the year 2000. That was in 1978. And of course, Reagan took the solar panels off the White House in '81 when he was inaugurated. One of the first things he did, and that was the end of that. But I mean, the Green New Deal, Jimmy Carter was promoting that. And you're honest to God trying to tell me that he can't win? Oh, he honeymooned in Moscow. He was the mayor of Burlington. There's a little town in the Soviet Union that was the sister city. Mayors do that. They go to the sister city. It wasn't on his honeymoon, although he made the remark it was a kind of a weird honeymoon because he and his wife had not had a kind of official honeymoon. So they kind of decided, well, we'll have a nice dinner while we're there. But he was there as the mayor of the city. Come on, give me a break. And even and he calls out, the Soviet Union as a bunch of dictators. Oh, well, he said nice things about Castro. You know what he said about Castro? He said that after Castro took over, everybody in the country got educated. Louise and I have been to Cuba. And the two things that are most conspicuous, three things that are most conspicuous and we traveled all around Cuba while we were there with no restrictions whatsoever. And the three things that you notice are even the homeless people have perfect teeth, number one. Number two, in all of Havana, I saw one homeless person. And I'm not sure he was homeless. He just kind of looked like a homeless person. But his teeth were perfect. Why? Because they have universal health care that includes dental and vision. Everybody has glasses. Everybody can see. Number one, what you see is everybody is healthy. Number two, there are no homeless people. And number three, everybody is literate. And those were the reforms that Castro made. And yeah, you don't see people standing out in the streets with signs saying, I hate the government. I'm with you on that. Bernie's with you on that. He has decried political repression in Cuba. But hey, they said education and health care, including dental care and literacy, these are human rights. We're going to put these, and housing, we're going to put these first and foremost. And he did. I mean, are you telling me that somebody who says that an entire country that's literate can't get elected president? Honest to God, is that what you're trying to tell me? Lloyd Blankfein came out, you know, the longtime CEO of Goldman Sachs, one of the richest men in America. Lloyd Blankfein comes out and says, well, I don't know if I can vote for Bernie Sanders. You know, Lloyd Blankfein's supposed to be he's a Clinton Democrat, as in Bill Clinton. He was one of Bill Clinton's advisors. And so, you know, I don't know if I can vote. I'll have to vote for Donald Trump if it's Bernie Sanders. Really? Bernie's response? I welcome the hatred of the crooks who destroyed our economy. I think I might find, this is what Blankfein said, I think I might find it harder to vote for Bernie than for Trump. This was the top headline on the Financial Times all weekend. Like, oh, this is a big story. All of us people who care about money should be worried about this. Blankfein says, propose Sanders' wealth tax. Now, you and I, if you own a house or if you rent, and odds are you do one or the other, or you live in your parents' house and they own a house or rent, you're paying a wealth tax. Every year, I write a check for several $1,000s to the city of Portland, or maybe it's Multnomah County, I'm not sure what, as property tax on the house I own. My home is my principal source of wealth, as is the case for most middle-class people. And every year I pay a tax on that principal source of wealth. And Bernie's just saying, hey, you know, people who own millions of dollars worth of stock, let's charge them a tiny percentage. Elizabeth Warren's proposal is 1%. Bernie's is in that neighborhood. I don't recall the exact amount. And Blankfein says, you know, this is just as subversive of the American character as Trump's demonization of people, groups of people he's never met. I don't like it at all. I don't like assassination by category. I think it's un-American. Right. It's un-American that billionaires pay the same, actually a much smaller tax. I mean, I'm paying more than 1% on my house. I think my property tax is like 4 or 5%. It's substantial. Maybe it's 3%. I don't know. You'd have to ask Louise because she handles the money in our household. But you know, I pay a wealth tax every year, and I'm not a rich guy. You probably pay a wealth tax, and if you're renting, you're paying it in form of increased rent because your landlord's just passing through their property tax. Why shouldn't Lloyd Blankfein pay a damn wealth tax? Well, Blankfein comes out and says, well, I'm going to have to vote for Trump. And Bernie says, I welcome their hatred. This is the 360, Sean. And here's what Franklin Roosevelt had to say about that.
Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
And our crowd cheers, just like the crowds cheer for Bernie. Seriously, if any of these anti-Bernie, people from, the kind of official hate Bernie bulletin board over at Democratic Underground, or anybody else, if any of you can call and specify one policy that Bernie is proposing that is not consistent with LBJ's Great Society or Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, I challenge you. There aren't any, to the best of my knowledge, possibly other than the wealth tax, which was proposed by Teddy Roosevelt, the Republican, back in 1907.